Hi everybody. It's your friend Daniel Hutchins. We're back again. As you see, I got my purple lights on. You know what that means? Yep, a late night video. Yes, because late night videos, as we always say, go anywhere between the average of 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. So, again, we are heading over back on our old friend comic book resources. Because it's been a long time. So what are we doing? We're going to do some comic book resources. Okay. We want to know what's happening in the comic book universe, right? Right. So, what is going on, folks? What is going on? Okay. Alright. Did you guys know the Nintendo Switch, yes, the second Nintendo Switch, will now feature more ways to make the Nintendo 64 games much easier to download? Okay? Now we talked about these before, and here we go again. Nintendo Switch 2 is now going to make it very easy for the Nintendo 64 library. I'm about to tell you why on our friend Comic Book Resource. Nintendo Switch 2 is now adding new features to the N64 of the Nintendo 64 library, now available to the Switch line and systems. Now this will make it the most infamous tough games of the 90s, and will make it a lot more easier to finish, which also means play. But those who subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online also receive access to the Nintendo Entertainment, the Super Nintendo Entertainment, and the Game Boy. Those who pay more for the expansion can also include Sega Genesis, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo 64. However, Nintendo Switch 2 now will give you access to all of those systems, including GameCube, for an expansion pass. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, Nintendo Switch 2 is now adding the big feature to Nintendo 64 games. Now you can go on Nintendo Switch 2 on the Nintendo Today app under Today News Blue Sky channel, and you can play your N64 games right off the Nintendo Switch 2 with this really cool feature called the Rewind feature. Now this already exists for the old system, but this is very exclusive to the new system. It allows all players to turn back the clock and play the second shot they play, as we saw a post from Blue Sky. Additionally, Nintendo Switch 2 games will also be able to play the CRT filter that the original N64 games have, to make it look more like a retro 90s television feel. Now, more importantly, it's also paving the way for a similar feature on the GameCube app, where you can also play classics like Super Smash Bros. Melee to come to your service near you. Now, all Switch owners can also remap their controls. The agony of pain and stress is already coming to an end thanks to the new addition on the Nintendo Switch 2. Original Nintendo Switch owners are not being left out either. In fact, both of these consoles are now adding control remap features. This was a desperate need for most who don't own the Nintendo 64 controller, as playing classics like GoldenEye 007 using both Joy-Cons was pure agony. But now, thanks to our friends with the Rewind feature and the CRT 90s feature, they are nice additions to the expansion. Though it's unclear why it took them this long, but it's now promoted something as new as the Switch 2 is. Granted, now the original Switch is also going to be capable of adding that CRT filter as well. For the source, you go to Today News, and you can go under Nintendo Switch under Nintendo Switch news over on Today News and also on our friend Comic Book Resource. That's what's going on with Nintendo, folks. That's what's going on with Nintendo. As we like to talk about video games sometimes here on the Hutton's Huts. Yes. Make no mistake there, son. Make no mistake there. We love talking video games here sometimes, too. And don't you ever forget. Okay. What else is going on with our friend Comic Book Resource? There's a lot of stuff we have to see what's going on Comic Book Resource. Okay. So now, since the Mission Impossible movie is finally out, now since we have Mission Impossible in theaters right now, this is every Mission Impossible movie ranked according to our review aggregator, Rotten Tomatoes. Again, now since the final movie's finally out, you can go see Mission Impossible again, as we saw Tom Cruise comes back again. And this time, it's the very last one. As the 8th and the final installment of the Mission Impossible series, it's a lot to live up to when you have 7 predecessors. Now, granted, this franchise has been noted getting better and better each time. Every new film stacks up quite a relation to the previous other ones. But, where do they fall on the ranking according to our most famous review aggregator, Rotten Tomatoes? Okay, now my page is not responding. I gotta wait for it. Come on. Come on, what the hell? Alright. We're not gonna describe everything. We're just gonna lay it all down to you. The lowest on the franchise is Mission Impossible 2. The lowest movie of the franchise is Mission Impossible 2. Their Rotten Tomatoes score is a 57%. That's really bad. Now, the original Mission Impossible, also very bad. That has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 65%. Okay, coming up on number 6. Mission Impossible 3. Also the most underrated of the franchise. Also has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 73. Now, for number 5. Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. It has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 80%. Again. What's on number 4? Number 4, we have Mission Impossible The Ghost Protocol. That has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now we're coming up to the top 3, guys. Top 3. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 94%. So what do we have for number 2? Okay. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Again, it has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 96%. Okay. What is the best one? You want to know the best one? Get ready. Mission Impossible Fallout is the best franchise has to offer. It has a 98% on the Rotten Tomatoes score. So there we have it, guys. Mission Impossible Fallout is the best movie of the Mission Impossible franchise. It is the number 1 movie of that franchise. And for very good reason, too, because, again, that movie, again, came out in 2018. It is still the very, very best one. Make no mistake. Okay, what else is going on in the universe? We talked about Nintendo. We talked about Mission Impossible. What else can we talk about here on this return to the comic book resource? Let's see. There's lots of other stuff we can talk about. Make no mistakes. Okay, we gotta keep looking. Okay, 10 TV shows that have peaked at season 2 and just went downhill from there. Okay. This is a top 10 list again, guys. A top 10 list. The top 10 list. 10 TV shows that peaked on season 2, but just immediately went downhill from there. Some TV shows start off really strong and find the ultimate peak right up to season 2. However, as characters deepened, plots tightened, and stakes got higher, after the second season, most of these canceled TV shows had immediately went downhill. And today, we're doing the top 10. Coming up on number 10, Stranger Things. And we already know it ends after 5 seasons. Okay. Coming up on number 9 on the list, Heroes. Yes, Heroes. It only ran for 4 seasons. Okay. Next on the list, The Walking Dead. Yes, The Walking Dead. You heard me right. The Walking Dead. That ran for 11 seasons. And there's been many, many sequels of it. Okay? Next on the list, Westworld. Westworld. Yes, Westworld. That ran for 3 seasons. Oh, crap, I'm going down too fast. Now, after Westworld, we have True Detective. Yes, True Detective. You heard me right. True Detective. That ran for 4 seasons. You guys are probably familiar with that one. Coming up on next on the list, we got Killing Eve. Killing Eve. 4 seasons. Dexter. Yes, Dexter. I've just recently was watching that, actually. Dexter. It ran for 8 seasons. Okay? Next on the list is Mr. Robot. 4 seasons. Very difficult plots to follow. Next on the list, House of Cards. That ran for 6 seasons. Very political, actually. And again, it has the main guy's name is Frank Underwood, who is played by the great Kevin Spacey, as he was, again, the president of the White House in that show. And yes, there's a lot of real-world scandals. Next on the list, the final one on this top 10 is Veronica Mars. Yes, Veronica Mars. Her show ran for 4 seasons. Again, she's a hero who's smart as also vulnerable. She also takes on the paranormal. Also, toward the more procedural format, she loses most of her narrative. Her mystery feels small, and her tone becomes unstable. Later on, our streaming service friend Hulu tried to recapture it, but alas, it finally ended in 2019. There we go, guys. The top 10 TV shows that peaked all the way in season 2, but had crashed and burned afterwards. Okay. Let's see what else we can find. What other stuff can we find? And yes, there is going to be more stuff. And yes, this will be a discussion which we'll post on Hutchins Huts, as I said before. Okay. Now, make no mistakes. Make no mistakes. Let's get this through. We're going to try to get at least 20 minutes on this one. Yes, we're going to try to go 20 minutes on this one. And we already hit the 15-minute mark. So, let's find some more stuff, shall we? Yes, okay. What else is going on? You want to know another top 10 list? Another top 10 list. Top 10 old school sci-fi movies that are still awesome today. Okay, this will be the last thing I'll do for this one. 10 old school sci-fi movies. Again, top 10. The top 10 old school sci-fi movies that are still very awesome today. Since the 1950s, science fiction has given an audience the best they ever made. From the Terminator all the way to Mickey 17 and even Companion. Oftentimes, the ethical dilemma of pitfall and technology, while humanity's efforts to explore new frontier. And again, films have often had a combination of social commentaries, the warnings, and more. The best films also manage to combine a strong message with healthy dose of escapism. Science fiction continues to be the powerhouse genre it is today. Now with movies like Avatar now hitting billions in the box office. Well, it's also crucial to remember the classics that helped build the sci-fi franchise. This is the top 10. Okay. The Beast from 20,000. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Again, they beat Godzilla to the punch. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Again, based on Godzilla. Again. This aftermath is a nuclear test where the U.S. military was besieged by giant dinosaurs, which has left made the chaos in the wake. Making it beeline to Manhattan, the scientist has teamed up with military in hope of finding a way to destroy this monster without blood causing devastating epidemics. The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was the United States stab in the face to Godzilla the full year after Japanese epic was released. Again, the cornerstone of kaiju genres of cinema, taking the inspiration classic work of Julius Verne and films like Jurassic Park: The Lost World. It also used a lot of America's atomic bombs and atomic tests as a warning to try to control destructive force. Ever since then, it's been the U.S. stab right on Japanese soil, and truly is a testament that deserves more. Now we have the next on the list. The Day the Earth Has Stood Still. Yes, this is directed by a guy named Robert Wise. The Day the Earth Stood Still is about an alien spacecraft landing on Earth, and they emerge from the inside, surrounded by U.S. militaries. He did try to establish diplomacy, however, being shot down and being hospitalized, he escapes and then meets and befriends a young kid named Bobby. And then he learns about humanity's history of war and prejudice. Also, understanding the danger on Earth as he warns the planet to pursue peace, and else face hostility from other planets. The Day the Earth Stood Still is also one of the most reflective, most thoughtful corners of science fiction ever to be written. It also has modern-day sci-fi movie ties as well. Also, just like directors like Denis Villeneuve and James Cameron. This is a brilliantly written masterpiece that's helped begin the genre from going from campy movies towards more intelligent stories. Next on the list, on the top 10, The War of the Worlds. The War of the Worlds is a classic directed by Byron Haskin. Again, based on the H.G. Wells stories of the same name. The War of the Worlds is basically a rival of Martians as they come to Earth and a resistance against them as government scientists and local women race to try to find the answer to save the planet. All seems like it's lost when multiple cities have fell to these invaders. This original War of the Worlds is a flawed sci-fi movie, but nonetheless is nothing short of brilliance. When it was released, making a great suspenseful alien invasion flick all the way back in good old sci-fi of 1950. While also, Spielberg also made a remake of this much later. This original has nailed the sense of helplessness that the face of invasion has terrified even people who listened to the radio when Orson Welles had famously wrote this story in 1938. Next on the list, on the top 10, we have Invasion of the Body Snatchers, directed by the great director Don Siegel. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Okay? It's a tale recounted by a man whose name is Miles. He has a community fallen under the mass delusion of loved ones are imposters, or fakes. Initially skeptical, he begins to realize something sinister is happening. His worst fear is confirmed, as discovery of pods of replicated human beings as creatures become dominant. Him and a group of survivors try to find a way to escape, but then have to warn the rest of the world. Serving as a great work for social commentary and everything in between, from the McCarthyism to the Red Scare. This is back during 1978. The remake of superior version, yet also the original remains a fantastic work of perfect sci-fi fiction, just like fans of films, just like the John Carpenter's The Thing. Next on the list, Forbidden Planet. Did you guys know Forbidden Planet was the one that helped inspire Star Trek? Yes, it has. It's directed by the great guy. His name is Fred M. Wilcox. Forbidden Planet, again, is the inspiration from Star Trek. Or inspiration for Star Trek. Correction. It's the inspiration for Star Trek. Investigating the silence of a colony mission sent years before, they arrive in the sole survivor expedition when Dr. Edward Morbius has to explain the mysterious entity on a planet killed by the rest of his clan. Along with his daughter and a robot, they have to find the planet's previous inhabitants in a hyper-advanced species called the Krill. However, the same force is killed by a last crew resurfacing and the fall of the ship's captain, John Adams. Not to get confused with the president, John Adams. But, again, to figure out what has been attacking his men before it was too late. Forbidden Planet also has all the charm and excitement, just like a full-length Twilight Zone episode, combined with the touch of cosmic horror and has a monster. Just like the wave of B-movies from the 1950 sci-fi series, this story has most intriguing one and has helped inspire Star Trek to go to where no man has gone before, and is a look at what advanced and sophisticated multi-planetary human races has captured the imaginations for sci-fi fans and writers around the world. Next on the list is Godzilla. Again, which one I'm about to tell you. Godzilla, directed by Ishiro Honda. Again, as we already know, as we've told you many times on the Hut, Godzilla is a really special place on the Hut. He takes place in an aftermath during World War II in the American nuclear bomb testing, where they see the return of the ancient monster, Godzilla, striking back in Japan. Also, there's a song about it by Blue Oyster Cult that's one of my dad's favorites. Oh, here we go. Watch out, Tokyo. Here comes Godzilla. Ooh. Okay. Now, as he destroys everything in path, he basically spurs the nation to rally in unity in desperation to save the nation from attack. However, as the nation of Japan is left helpless, the military has to turn to him and try to stop and halt his attacks. Again, we know the original Godzilla is a work, as we saw, from 1950s during post-war Japan. Yes. The 1954 original Godzilla. Coming up on the list next is 2001 Space Odyssey. This is directed by a guy named Stanley Kubrick. Okay. 2001 The Space Odyssey is an appearance of a mysterious black monolith, which triggers an evolution. Eons later, after another monolith was discovered from the moon, making humans aware of their existence. At the same time, the space mission of a small group of scientists and bandits go to Jupiter and is disrupted when an onboard AI called HAL 9000 has become hostile towards them and their pilots, Dave and Frank. As they try to navigate the dangers of their machine, they approach answers from the third monolith. The 2001 Space Odyssey was a crucial part of most science fiction for many reasons. In fact, their accurate portrayal of realistic space travel and exploration and the dangers of artificial intelligence. And to call this movie one of the most important sci-fi films ever. And to undersell the influence it had generations of scientists, authors, and filmmakers around the world, combining their efforts to focus the audience to question everything about it, while also leaving a feeling of curiosity, confusion, and anxiety. Now we're in the top three, guys. Top three on this list. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Okay, this is again, we know, by Steven Spielberg. Close Encounters of the Third Kind explores a mystery of series of disappearances on Earth that spans years and years and years, also causing governments around the world to investigate when the electrician guy named Roy Neary has went an encounter with extraterrestrial people, and then he basically becomes obsessed with them. Also, he alienates and abandons his family in a search for an answer, and as scientists continue their missions to uncover the truth, everything converges when it attempts to establish contacts with aliens from the outside. Close Encounters of the Third Kind also is effectively what has reshaped how aliens are perceived in science fiction, famously created by the great man himself, Steven Spielberg. Again, as we already know. Now, next on the list is Planet of the Apes. Planet of the Apes. Created and directed by Franklin J. Schaffner. Also, I never specially like talking about sometimes on the Hut. Also, given that we like talking about Planet of the Apes and Godzilla and all sorts of other sci-fi things like Star Trek and other things, let's just consider this a Stepdad Legacy Special. As we call it, a Stepdad Legacy Special. Rest in peace to my dad in the comic book universe. Anyway, back to topic. Planet of the Apes begins when a crew on a space mission crash land on a planet they discover was home to apes, who kept humans as livestock. Again, it's one of my dad's favorite series. Yes, my dad of the comic book universe, Eric. Yes, I talk about him a lot. Attracting the interest of many scientists, they try to plan an escape, only to learn the devastating truth. Based on a novel again, by our famous friend Pierre Boyle, Planet of the Apes is one of the most ambitious sci-fi movie franchises ever to be made. Goes all the way as far back as 1968. In fact, and has boasted one of the most iconic plot twists of ever in all of cinematic history. This film has also taken dystopian, new level heights, and has not to mention the costume designs and quotable scripts and lines. An understanding modern science fiction in the movie that is practically mandatory to all people who love this franchise. And coming up on number one, the best of the best, Alien. And yes, also that's one of my dad's favorite also. He loves Alien. Alien, as created by the creator and directed by Ridley Scott. In 1979, Ridley Scott, the creator of the Alien franchise, again, as they discovered again on a spaceship on the barren moon. Again, crewmates have to host an alien creature, while the rest of the teams are forced to fight Survivor as monster begins picking them off one by one, realizing this monster is close to unkillable, and many other survivors and scientists have to plan a way to destroy the ship and ensure no creature ever steps back again. In the sense, the Alien franchise is so popular that it's marked the turning point of all science fiction from genre away from old and new, paving the way for modern classics like The Thing, Predator, and even Event Horizon. With the retro set and subtle exploration of dystopians and also terrifying creatures, featuring that we know of the Xenomorph, yes, that is the real name of the alien, the Xenomorph, they play on the tension of deep space and isolations on ship, while also the film has effectively delivered the slasher formula we need with a cosmic horror on the side. Yes. So there we go, guys. That's the end of this one. I'll see you all later.